Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons Academy. We have returned from our Labor Day vacation and school is back in session. I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore. As always, we're here to revisit, review, and ridicule some of the world's weirdest animated series. You can probably hear my buddy cackling in the background. It's my co-host, John Paul Ellis. How's it going, sir? Welcome back to school.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Principal Trumbore.
Yeah, anytime.
I appreciate being back here.
Are those kids behaving for you so far?
They are.
It's been 3 days. It's been literally 3 days.
I have lost a finger.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as the kids
And-
didn't, we're covered for you. We're not really covered for them.
No, I'm aware, but I only have
Yeah.
so many more fingers, and
Well,
it's 3 days.
That's why you're not the shop
so-
teacher anymore.
No, I am the shop teacher.
Oh.
It's we
There
budget
was
cuts.
that
I'm
unfortunate incident with
I'm
Terry.
now
Yeah.
English, math, science, and shop.
Yeah.
So
It's a small
and-
school, private school.
and as we mentioned last week, PE. So I mean, there's a lot.
Right.
There's a lot going on.
Okay, you hanging in there though? I feel like maybe you need some sort of like educational program that would maybe help take the stress off of your day. Maybe you just put a video on and just like let the kids watch it and just sit back on some bourbon or something. Not that I recommend that in school.
No, I mean, it actually sounds like you just endorsed
may
me
have.
drinking while I'm at work.
Yeah. As long
And
as
I-
you're
I
running a
s-
video that's educational, I'm totally fine with it.
How does that, is that how it cancels itself
Yeah,
out?
no, exactly. The kids aren't paying attention.
And
the
also,
kids
the
want
kids
to.
aren't drinking.
Exactly. So we went
And
on
the kids
both
aren't
counts.
drinking. So
That holds up in
really,
court.
ugh,
You're also our lawyer, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, budget cuts. This is a small
Very small
charter
school.
school we're
Yeah.
working with right here. Yeah, I would love for some type of an educational video just to put on and just, I mean, now that I'm also the nurse, I'm,
Yeah.
being able to potentially, I mean, the finger's been on ice that I lost. So, I mean, fingers crossed. Well, not that one at least, but
Yeah, you can't cross
you know,
that one.
I'm hopeful that I'll be able to reattach it and it'll be all right.
Well, you're gonna have to
So-
wait till after this show, unfortunately, because we're on a time crunch here. We got to get in before the kids get back to school.
My
so-
God.
Well, I'll tell you what. You can.
So do you have a video that if
I
that
do.
I could?
I have a series actually of videos that you could probably run.
What you got? What you
Well,
got?
I mean, this thing ran for I don't know about 37 years, so you can probably find just a few to string together, occupy their time for some time. Of course, I'm
Well,
talking
here's-
about Schoolhouse Rock, my friend, which I know,
yes.
despite your chicanery, you were fully aware of, as I am.
Well, I think the challenging question that I have
Yeah.
for you is please tell me that these Schoolhouse Rock videos are going to be a little bit more substantial in terms of length.
You're gonna have to string a lot of these together.
I'm fucked.
They were originally like interstitial programming, so they're actually only about 3 to 3.5 minutes long.
Yeah.
So
Oof.
for one of your class periods, you probably need about 15 to 20. But the good news is since 2009, you can buy them direct to video. So it's not in the
Oh.
budget. You will have to buy them yourself. But one video should get you through about a week, maybe.
All right.
So you'll,
I
you'll
will.
probably be okay.
I mean, I'm fine. That seems to be okay.
I think that seems. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Fair practice.
Who put together these?
Yeah, this was actually a weird history for me. I always thought this was sort of like a public broadcasting kind of thing, but Schoolhouse Rock actually started as a commercial advertising venture by David McCall, who was one half of a Madison Avenue ad agency. He basically got the idea because he noticed that one of his sons was having trouble in school. He couldn't remember his multiplication tables, but he did know the lyrics to, popular music of the time. So he knew how to sing all the current rock songs, but he couldn't remember his multiplication tables. So this guy being a madman, he decided to kind of put this thing together. And there was a very long there were a lot of iterations over the years. There was, an animated version of it eventually, but it started as sort of just like this comic book type thing and almost like a coloring book type thing where they had the lessons laid out almost in like a workbook that you would see in school anyway. And then they decided, okay, we're going to add some sort of like video and musical component. And obviously the video and the music became, what everybody really knows Schoolhouse Rock for, which we
Right.
will get into when we talk about our episodes today. But as I mentioned earlier, the series' original run lasted from 1973 to 1985, later revived with both old and new episodes airing from 1993 to 1999. And then additional episodes were produced starting in 2009 for direct-to-video release. So it's been around for a while. They haven't necessarily made new episodes every year. They just kind of recycled old ones.
Right.
But This is why we still today remember episodes from like 1975, 1976, because they were so good back then, and the songs were crafted in such a way that, you know, they were very memorable. Even if you didn't really know what the hell they were trying to teach you, you could still remember the songs. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the history. But do you want to let the folks know what we're actually talking about when we talk about Schoolhouse Rock?
Sure. As you mentioned, it was an American interstitial programming series of animated musical educational shorts that aired during the Saturday morning children's block on ABC. Topics that they had included grammar, science, economics, history, mathematics, and civics. So,
Yeah, and I don't know, off the top of your head, you can include the ones that we're talking about today, but like which ones, when we brought this show up for discussion, which episodes or which songs or which characters immediately came to mind for you?
So the first, honestly, two of the videos that we'll be discussing tonight jumped into my mind.
Okay.
Conjunction Junction
Yeah.
was one of the first, and then clearly you can't have Schoolhouse Rocks without the Bill sitting on top of Capitol Hill.
That's right.
And so he's probably the most memorable and noteworthy character.
Well, he's the reason you moved to Washington, D.C., is that correct?
Yeah, that is 100%. I have been trying to find him every time I go to the Capitol building.
He's like a Where's Waldo?
He is very elusive.
I
It is
bet.
hard. It's hard to find him. So, but I'm dedicated. I'm going to keep trying,
That's good.
and one day I'm going to succeed.
I think, from what I understand, he might still be sitting there on those Capitol Hill steps.
But like I said, challenging and difficult to find. I'll keep going. I'll keep looking.
The cool thing is that these episodes aren't really challenging or difficult to find. You can find tons of them online because they are only 3.5 minutes long. So there's just a ton of them. I mean, I watched a bunch today because I kind of fell down this rabbit hole of just, you know, watching old ones, seeing if I remembered any of the ones that came up. We have a selection, a select few we'll talk about today, and maybe briefly mention a couple others that you might want to seek out. But I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
I will say from the selection that we've had, there is one that we're going to talk about tonight that today was the first time that I ever watched it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I already know which one that is, but listeners,
Yeah.
we're gonna keep you hanging on there for a bit. So exciting.
It's so exciting.
For me, it was the science ones I went back to today to kind of watch and see, like, okay, how much are they dumbing down for kids? How much are they kind of being tongue-in-cheek? And then is there sort of an anachronistic effect? Like, is this 1976 science versus, 2015 science? Or is it stuff that is just the basics, so it's pretty consistent, no matter what decade you're in, as long as it's post 1890 or whatever. So
Well,
I was actually surprised to find that it was accessible for kids,
Okay.
but also fairly sound in the basics, which I think is a really difficult challenge for the creators of Schoolhouse Rock to get a 3.5 minute video, get the basics across, make it memorable, make it fun, but also make it correct. You don't want to give them false information. So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
The thing that, I mean, you took a lot of science classes when you were in college. Of course you did. I know you did. And the thing that was very funny or interesting for me was sitting in those lecture halls for a biology or a chemistry class.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't know if they intended this discussion point to be something that was inspiring or just flat out confusing as hell to me.
Yeah.
But I had two teachers in college that laid everything out on the line for me and said, you know what, I'm going to teach you this stuff, but in the next decade, it's probably not going to be relevant or the same material. It's going to change.
Yeah. And honestly,
And
I mean,
you sit there and you're just like, well, I'm pretty sure that we kind of have a firm grasp about how the human body works and how some of those things work. And then the funny thing is that the older you get, the more you realize, oh no, we know
no.
absolutely nothing.
We think we know a lot.
We think we know a decent amount, but we are so not there yet. It's crazy. It's very interesting.
Well, that's what was fun about in the sort of the upper level, biological science courses and chemistry courses that I took. It was once you get into the more specific kind of courses, so like, I don't know, even just like a human genetics course or a vertebrate morphology or just things that are a little more specific than just general bio or general chem, you start to find that like there are a lot more questions that are still unanswered. So
Right.
I actually liked revisiting these videos where it's just like, here's the most basic possible stuff that we can tell you because we're feeling pretty good about this. But I mean, yeah, stuff like this changes all the time. I mean, even with how the human body works, they're starting to really focus now on the microbiome and the entire sort of ecosystem of microscopic organisms that live within and on the body. Everywhere from the surface of your skin to your digestive tract to everything else. And then from that, trying to discern, one person from the next, it's almost like two planets. You've got like two different planets that are standing right next to each other as far as the species of microbiological organisms on that planet are concerned. So maybe we can start to tailor medicine or treatments or even the diagnosis based on what living organisms we have in or on ourselves. And this is relatively cutting edge stuff that nobody's ever really explored or been able to explore in the last 500 years of medicine or whatever. So things like that are pretty interesting. How you talk about a microbiome in a Schoolhouse Rock video, I have no fucking clue.
I have no idea.
Just make them watch what was that movie? Osmosis Jones. Make them watch Osmosis Jones.
I thought you were going to say Inner Space.
Or Inner Space. Start with Osmosis Jones, move up to Inner Space.
And then work your way back to Inner Space.
I remember watching Osmosis Jones as a kid and wishing that it was so much better than what it was. I was so disappointed.
Well, I think that was the general feeling about watching that movie.
Yeah, unfortunately. Bill Murray was the best part.
Oh, what a great concept. Ooh, what an execution.
Bill Murray popping that zit.
Yep.
Still gives me nightmares. If you don't know what we're talking about, definitely go check Osmosis Jones out.
Yeah. It is, I'll put it this way, it's an animated movie.
Yes, it is. Partially. Partially animated, partially a movie.
Partially a movie.
Can we add that to the list? That was actually an animated series.
Was it really?
Yeah, they did the movie and then they had just a strictly animated series.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And it's terrible. We got to watch it. All right, cool.
We got to watch it because it's shit.
Yeah, because it's absolute shit. Schoolhouse Rock, not shit. I'm going to say that right out of the gates. Schoolhouse Rock.
I'm on board.
Schoolhouse Rock, not shit. Do you agree or disagree?
Wait, you said no, it's not shit.
Okay, good. Just making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page with this one. We are very much on the same page.
So much like these episodes are, 10 times shorter than what we're used to watching, the opening theme is about 8 to 10 times shorter than we're used to watching too. Did you get a chance to check it out?
Yeah, I did. I liked this intro, and I thought it was great because they really do a great job of kind of quickly getting you in there, understanding what it is, and I guess maybe the thing that they posit or that they remind you of is that knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And that they are going to, it's short enough that we can say it says, as your body grows bigger, your mind grows flowered. It's great to learn because knowledge is power. And you're like, okay, that's great. Like that was super simple.
Yeah.
The animation style that they had in it was fun. It was, it does really give me like a 70s style animation feel to
100%. Yeah. It feels like they never changed that. I didn't get to watch any of the newer ones, but I feel like that's stayed pretty constant.
And I guess I'm curious after we talk about these to talk a little bit later about what they would do the modern ones on.
Yeah, really. I mean, you've got Ebola.
No, I mean, because it seems like these were things. It seems like some of these things were, informational, and I wonder, regarding like science, as we mentioned, and technology and all these things, and I just wonder how much of them goes from informational or educational to just like straight like, hey guys, really just don't do this, but we're gonna put it to a song.
Yeah.
Just
sort of like a PSA at the beginning of a
exactly.
educational PSA.
That's exactly what I feel like it could evolve to in 2015.
Well, what was interesting is that this run of shows, they didn't do that many computer shows or technology related shows because, I mean, honestly, why would you in the 70s and 80s really? Kids they didn't have their hands on just like, household PCs and definitely not mobile tablets or mobile devices. The internet was not around. There were, half of this show's runtime did not have that as a background. So they couldn't, definitely couldn't teach kids about it because they had no clue what to expect. So yeah, the modern day Schoolhouse Rock would be really interesting, especially because you could honestly run an entire charter school like we do through the model of Schoolhouse Rock.
Right.
I mean, this day and age, charter schools exist online. You telecommute. You do all your learning based on videos, and you do all your in-class instruction and conversations.
I mean, just throwing it out there, San Francisco City College, whole online branch of that college that they have that's available. Look, they want to teach you when you want to learn.
Yeah. Not when they want to teach you. Whenever
Yeah,
you
now
wanna learn.
it's whenever you want to learn.
So if you check out their site right now, I think they're just running a 24/7 live stream of Schoolhouse Rock episodes, and occasionally just puppies playing in a corner, which is real cute.
I've been streaming it for the last 24 hours.
It's pretty great.
It's wonderful.
We're learning a
It's
lot
great.
of cool stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, like this opening scene, they introduce you to. Do you remember the guy's name?
Yeah, it was Schoolhouse Rocky.
Schoolhouse Rocky.
He's that chip off the block
Oh no.
of your favorite schoolhouse, Schoolhouse Rock.
And I feel like he was intended to be kind of like a mascot in early days, but I don't know that they ever really did a whole lot with him
Yeah, he does not jump to mind
for anything.
in having any pivotal role later on, other than just to introduce the show.
Yeah,
But
get another rhyme in there. Yeah,
right. The quick thing that I thought was great was it gets to the point quickly. It introduces you to this Rocky character that you can care about, and you'll never see again. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. Face on the side of a milk carton. Nobody knows who the fuck this guy is.
Rocky. His little blonde pompadour and his cape.
Yeah. So he kind of has this superhero aesthetic.
Yeah.
You know, to continue with the idea of learning and knowledge is power, and if you learn more, you're kind of like a superhero. And I get that. We talked about that last week, Dave. I know you made mention of, if you were able to go back to school and be a perpetual student, and continue to better yourself. And I think that Rocky sort of embodied some of that for the introduction to this cartoon. And so it's fun, it's quick, it's catchy, and I dug it.
Yeah. I think it was great too because they kind of dipped into that the aesthetics of superhero shows at the time, because there were a lot of the Justice League and the Batman cartoon series and all those 60s, 70s shows were obviously huge for kids. So
yeah,
definitely dug into that. Yeah.
The one thing that I guess makes some of these cartoons and the Justice League cartoons as well decidedly very 70s for me is the color palette that they use for a lot of the very, very vibrant,
very primary,
very
oriented.
bright, very primary colors. It just I don't know what it is about like that era and that period of time that looking at those different like swatches like on some of the stuff, I'm just like, oh yeah, like that is hands down exactly what you would see. Sort of some of the lines for some of the drawings are, let's say, a little bit squiggly.
Yeah.
In certain areas.
Yeah,
like
they're not super crisp. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so there's it seems like there's a lot of room for error in some of the things that are available.
It's still a lot of the hand-drawn stuff too, so it's got that very warm kind of cartoonish feel to it.
And I think that's what personal touch.
There you go.
I think it feels like there's a personal touch in a lot of this, and I enjoy that.
And the cool thing was, it wasn't just the animation, it was the story that they were trying to tell you, it was the songs that they were singing, it was the voices that you would hear over and over again, singing different songs. You would recognize the same voice from show to show, from interstitial to interstitial. And it was cool, it was nice, it was familiar, it was warm. Like you said, personal touch, I think, is the best way to explain that. Because that's really what they had. And that's what made these things so memorable. So why don't we jump into a couple ones let's start with the one that you did see. Let's go Conjunction Junction. You want to start with that first?
Yeah, sure. Conjunction Junction.
Let's, I'm sure just by mentioning those two words out there that a fair amount of our listeners are already singing that songs in their head.
But it really is. It's so, I think about it every once in a while. I mean, I know you obviously do a lot of writing every day for Collider.com.
I can't get through the day without singing this song.
Really?
It's maybe half true.
Hit or miss.
Anytime I have to use a conjunction, I have to sing this song. That's why I take a lot of medication.
I just I just love how catchy it is.
Yeah.
And the tune for this, the conjunction junction, what's your function? And it's just, it got in my head at a very young age, and I don't think it's ever gotten out. And every once in a while, when I'm at work and I'm doing things and I'm typing out stuff and I hit a preposition, or if somebody asks me like, hey, do you have a synonym for this? And I'm like, oh yeah, like let's get into this. Like, let's really double down on all these things that we had.
Yeah.
It's it just kind of comes into my brain, and I always smile, and I forget what it is. I think it's the line when they're just what was it, like when he's like hooking up or
just hooking up. He's just out to Netflix and chill.
No, whenever he talks about hooking up like clauses and phrases,
to
everything
get
in here,
them moving or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hooking up
it's
trains to
just
keep them moving. Yeah.
yeah, for some reason that just really that really was pleasing, and I was glad when we started listening to this, because I regarding nostalgia, when
Yeah.
we watch some of these cartoons, there's those rare moments where we'll put something on and just that stupid smile comes across your
Yeah.
face where you're like, yes, this is, I remember this so distinctly. I had to actually look up the lyrics for this specific interstitial.
Oh, for this one? Okay.
Right, because I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, and because as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I really want to sing along with this
Yeah.
one. Like I really want to get in here, and I didn't remember, I guess, how complex it portions.
Yeah, because it's not just like
It
a straight
gets.
silly song. It's not just a silly song that you get, volume 8 of silly songs that kids sing. It's not that.
Right.
There's a sing-songy element to it, but then there's a storytelling element that is the sort of the instructor's voice. So the
Right.
instructor in this case is the little engineer, the little what would you call him?
He's a conductor.
The conductor at the
He's a conductor.
Yeah,
He's a conductor
conjunction
for all these trains, and he's moving back and forth, and he's what was it? He's hooking up words and phrases and clauses.
Yeah.
And that's,
and he's
he's
keeping
putting
this
everything
all
together.
organized. Yeah, and I love it because
And
he's like so like just overwhelmed by all these things. He's just like, just moving them along, and here we go.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like I don't know what voice it was. Unfortunately, I didn't look that one up. But basically, he isn't really doing a lot of the singing. He's kind of doing this narrative, sing-songy kind of storytelling along the way. But it's very
Right.
sort of conversational, and then they do this callback to the singers who just keep saying, conjunction, junction, what's your function? And then they throw in the actual conjunctions so that the kids can learn them and so that the conductor can explain them. And it works really well. The animation style, the musical quality of it, and then obviously how memorable everything is. This is one of the best ones that they've come up with.
It was, so with a couple of these, I will say that the character's voice and the voice and then the character that they actually portray on the screen, I will say that sometimes they some of these Schoolhouse Rock videos, they don't necessarily match up. Like I'll hear the voice and I'll see the character that's on the screen, and I'm like, I don't see those two together.
Okay.
For Conjunction Junction, I immediately was like, yes, this is this conductor. He seems pretty chill. Like so far, you're about one verse in, and he's like, look, guys, if you know and, but, and, or, he goes, they're gonna get you pretty far. And I'm like, I know all three words.
I know those are the best conductor.
I know those words. So it's kind of crazy.
Let me ask you, between this character and the character of Bill that you mentioned earlier,
right?
Which voice matches better? Because I'm pretty sure it's the same voice.
Yeah, I think this one does.
Really? You think conductor over Bill?
I think conductor for me matched very well. I think the challenge is that you don't really see the conductor saying very much.
Yeah, he's just moving around a lot.
He's just moving around. I think. Well, I'll change my response, my answer, and say that it is Bill, because Bill is interacting with the child the entire time, and so I think you get a little bit. You obviously get another 3 minutes worth of exposure to the Bill interacting and actually having a specific voice, and so I think the Bill matches up better. But
but it works for the conductor too, is what you're saying.
I think it very much works for the conductor.
Cool.
So they, I wanted to. There was one point in this where I was kind of dancing, and I was looking at the lyrics and I was singing along, and then they got into a complex sentence.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that portion of the cartoon, and so I honestly sat there watching it, kind of going, "Oh no!"
Like
there's
to learn
There's so much shit in this one.
Yeah, I had to watch. There were moments where I was watching these where I'm like, oh, I got to stop and pay attention for a second because I need to learn this thing again that I forgot from 25 years ago.
Do you know what the sentence is?
Oh,
God,
they
explain obviously with conjunctions about being able to hook things up with and, but, or. And so they go in this thing. It says they give you a demonstration of what a complex sentence could be using these conjunctions in order to assemble everything. And it's in the mornings when I am usually wide awake, I love to take a walk along the gardens and down by the lake.
There's your first conjunction.
Where I often see a duck and a drake.
There's your second.
And
third, sorry.
I wonder as I walk by just what they'd say if they could speak, although I know it's an absurdist thought. And
What a ridiculous sentence
It's
for like 6-year-old.
But it is. I mean, I like. Look, I'm 35. I still think to myself, like, I wonder what that animal's saying. I met a dog today, and I was like, I want to know everything that you're saying right now. I'm like, I wish I knew. I wish I
Only
knew.
there was a Schoolhouse Rock to teach me how to talk to animals.
God, I want that Schoolhouse. That's what I want in the reboot.
That's what you want.
Yeah. So it just, that was the one moment, because everything else is very, like you said, Dave, very sing-songy.
Yeah,
kind of
it's
very,
straightforward.
very flowing and extremely straightforward. And then suddenly they're just like, here's a complex sentence. And I was like, oh,
That is actually complex.
Shit, that's a complex sentence that I need to pay attention to.
Yeah, right?
But they do a great job with the visuals, as well as, explaining, some of the additional pieces
Yeah, so
about like,
yeah,
out of the frying pan and into the fire.
that's
and so
what I want to talk about. So they
use these idioms to kind of stress it, these things that like, you're just like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with these phrases.
Right. Stuff you've heard
so
before. Yeah.
Right. So it's accessible. Like, it's nice because it seems very accessible.
And it starts super easy and super, the earlier they start, the easier it is. And as they go on throughout this sequence, then you build up to this complex sentence. So it literally starts with this conductor. Like Sean said, if you have and, or, and but, you can do a lot. So he has this mechanic of like these one train car has the word and, or but on it. And then the other 2 train cars on either side. He's like, like this and that, or this or that. Or not this, but that. And that's as simple as they start. And I love the fact that it's train cars, if only because you can bring in hobos. And you can bring in these, the trail car riders. Yeah.
Can I note before we bring in the hobos? Of
course you can.
There's one part where they're doing the whole sequence that you mentioned about not this, but that. And so they're moving around all these train cars back and forth that on the side of the train car. These train cars are very primary colored. Yeah. Train
They're
cars,
literally
so it's
like all
bright
red, yellow.
like bright red or blue or yellow. And so they have this sequence of train cars that are on there, and it says not this but they didn't bring in the that. They didn't bring in the that, and so
and you laugh because you're a child.
For 2 seconds, it just says not this but.
Not
and
this but
I lost my mind. I started laughing. So I was like, not this but.
Not this but which but is it?
Which but?
Which but?
That made me laugh so hard. But
Schoolhouse Rock never did answer that question of which butt.
They never. Yeah, which butt? Which butt, guys? Which butt?
Conjunction
which
conductor.
Butts?
Which
Come
butts?
on. Which butt?
Oh.
So as you mentioned, they bring in.
They bring in hobos.
How many hobos?
I think 2 hobos.
Yeah, they bring in 2 hobos.
They bring in 2 hobos. A little one and a fat one. And they're so delightful.
They are.
They just sit around doing hobo stuff all day, which is what our friend Matt Barron does. Listeners know. I can hear the haunted ghost train whistle in my memories, in my dreams. But no, they bring in hobos so that as they go through the examples of these conjunctions, so something more complicated than this or that. They start talking about what was the one you said? Out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Right.
So they literally show like fat hobo cooking up a fish in a frying pan. He goes to flip it and it falls into the fire. So they have these visual cues that tie into the song so that kids, even if they've got the concept of a conjunction and what and means at this point, they still remember out of the frying pan and into the fire, and they can see that fish falling. And it's just a nice way to tie everything together to get the lesson across.
My favorite was the additional lesson.
My
favorite was the additional lesson at the end about being able to say please and thank you. Yes, and they say you should always say thank you or at least please.
And I was like, please.
Well, that was nice. And the hobo at that point is offering the conductor coffee and then sugar for his coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they're buddies. Like I like that.
Yeah. So if you're ever like a 5-year-old kid lost in a rail station, just say please and thank you. Say please or at least thank you, and always offer sugar for coffee.
Nothing can go wrong.
And then call the cops.
Call the cops.
My actual favorite part before we move on to the next one with these hobos was at one point the conductor, so the narrator, singer, conductor guy occasionally just goes crazy. He just kind of goes off on a tangent that he just like, it just kind of goes off the rails, literally, in this case. And at one point he says something to the effect of, you can be thin or fat. He's like,
yeah.
But I'm already fat enough, so I'm not going to get any fatter. And he just kind of like, just has this random string of verbs that just kind of run off. I'm like, well, hold on. And then they just show like the fat ass of one of the hobos sitting on a log. I don't know why, but that caught me totally off guard.
And it was funny too because he continually grows wider,
wider and wider.
and he pushes the other thinner
The little
hobo
guy.
off, and he just falls immediately on the ground at
That's
like a
great.
right angle.
Yeah, just boonk right over.
Yeah, but he makes the comment. He goes, eat this or that, grow thin or fat.
That's-
Never mind, I would never do that. I'm fat enough now.
I'm
And you're like,
fat enough.
whoa.
Like, oh, he's got some issues. It was great though. I love little moments like that because it's not. Again, it goes back to what you were saying. It's got that personal touch. It
Yep.
feels warm and welcoming, and you can laugh about it. And it sounds like your uncle telling a story or whatever. It's very just familiar, and it doesn't seem like they're trying to preach to you or teach you specific things. It's not a teacher in a classroom. It's just a bunch of
Yeah.
hobos singing a hobo song.
Just Uncle Conductor.
Just Uncle Hobo
spinning you a yarn
You a
with a
hobo
stick and a
yarn.
bindle and a can of beans.
Oh no, kids, stay out of the rail cars.
All right.
Stay out of the rail
So
station.
one of the next ones that we watched was Verb.
Now this is one that you said you hadn't seen.
I had never watched this.
Is it because you were not a young black child growing up in the projects?
I'm not that, but that's not the reason that I didn't watch it.
Okay.
I don't remember this one. And so this was kind of interesting to watch.
This-
And I'm actually going to
yeah.
say that I'm curious when we go back and we talk about some of these later in another episode, because some of the ones that you listed and that we originally talked about, I don't remember watching them either.
Right.
And so I really think that I may have only watched Conjunction Junction and
Just
Bill.
over and over again.
Yeah, and just those are the only two things.
You poor thing.
Oddly enough, though, I only really took notice to one of them, so I'm only really good with conjunctions. Legislative
Not so much.
legislative.
Yeah.
Legislation process, I am garbage with.
Well, this one I do remember, but kind of on your point, watching them again with obviously an adult mindset and having the benefit of 20 some years of public school education and college education. I did not go to public school for 20 years. That's the way that came out. But watching it with that mindset, you do kind of notice different things. So when I was a kid, if I watched this Verb short, I probably wouldn't have noticed like, oh, hey, this is a black kid in a black neighborhood going to a movie theater to see a movie with a ton of other black kids in the audience featuring black actors and superheroes and everything else on screen. I probably maybe wouldn't have noticed that as a kid. Maybe I would. I don't know. I definitely noticed it now because it was something that was very different from anything that I'd seen in the rest of these shorts. I've seen a mix of different kids of different colors, different genders. This is the first time I saw, pretty much like an all black cast, for lack of a better word. So an all black characters. And honestly, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter if they were white, Asian, black, doesn't matter because they're just teaching about verbs in this case. I just thought it was an interesting choice for whoever made it to just be like, look, verbs are they're powerful words. They can do a lot. It's action oriented. We can empower ourselves through these words, through our writing, through our speaking, and through our actions, which is what verbs are all about. And they chose to make it about a young black kid going to the movies and using his imagination. I thought that was really striking, almost to the point that I didn't pay attention to what the hell they were saying in the song. So I don't know. Did you have a take on that? Did that jump out at you like it did?
Yeah,
me?
I mean, it definitely. I noticed immediately that this was a young black kid who was doing all these things, and the thing that again felt very personal was just him using his imagination,
Right.
enjoying himself, and also I'm gonna be honest. I mean, black kid or not black kid, I'm gonna venture to say that some of his manners in that movie theater regarding
Seating
who
selection.
gets certain seats, pretty garbage.
I was not thrilled with that.
I was not feeling this.
Well,
If
this
you're-
is a verb episode. This is not a manners at the movie theater episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, this is what they're gonna need.
I'll tell you what, man. This was
hopefully
like
a new one that they
this
have.
was like straight 70s though, because it was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. They didn't get in a fight. Okay, so the idea is this kid, he's by himself. He's going to buy a ticket to. Was the movie just called Verb?
I think so.
I think it
Yeah.
was just called Verb. And they're just saying verb like over and over again at the beginning of this show. And the kid goes to the movies. He buys his ticket. He buys his popcorn. He sees the entire theater is pretty much full. He marches down to the front row and he sees an open seat, but this big fat kid is headed towards it. So our little protagonist just runs over and he just jumps his little ass right in the seat. And then he kind of like, what is he? He doesn't blow the raspberry. It's the other guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
But he basically
He
looks at him like, yeah,
immediately
what are you gonna
begins
do about it?
eating popcorn.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the other kid, rather than like, using his size or whatever, he just blows a raspberry, then walks away. And I was like, that's an odd choice here.
Yeah, well, I will say this.
Yeah.
I think that they needed to acknowledge it in some way. I didn't think Schoolhouse Rock was ever going to turn into like Schoolhouse fight at a movie theater. I don't think that that's
that's fair.
the message that they
This is not Schoolhouse Rock blood combat yet.
And so that
but
was
after that, I feel like it was okay. I feel like everything else after that was pretty decent, right? Don't you think?
yeah.
Did
And
you have any other manner moments that jumped out?
Not only like decent, but I thought that it was very wholesome. I mean, because
Yeah.
they have this, they had the idea of this kid he's learning how to make like how to understand like that there's different parts of a sentence, and really, a verb makes change on the subject.
Yeah.
And they go through some of the pretty quick lessons. I will say I don't feel like the lesson as I'm watching it, because I watched it twice. I don't feel like the lesson really kind of took hold for me. Even as an adult, I was more. I think I was actually more watching the visuals of everything that was going on in this boy's imagination and the things that he was creating,
Right.
as opposed to actually paying attention to some of the lessons that were coming through.
Well,
which is
it was super wordy. They really tried to cram in a lot of stuff. They tried to cram in, sentence structure and sentence diagramming by basically
Right.
breaking down like, here's a subject and here's what those things are, and here's a verb and here's the different clauses, and you can have past, present, and future, and you can have helper verbs, and you can have like existence verbs, and it was too much.
yeah. I thought there
you
was a
got
lot.
3 minutes to cram all this stuff in. If you
Yeah.
get the point across that it's like an action verb, an action word, and it serves to modify the action in a sentence, I feel like that's probably a pretty good episode.
Yeah,
They tried to
that's
cram
good
a
place
lot of
to-
stuff in. Yeah.
Is at least a good place to start. I feel like
Yeah.
with, especially with the English language in terms of facets that we have within our language structure,
Yeah.
I feel like verb is one that most people who are learning English for the first time are confused. Verbs in the English language can be extremely challenging sometimes if you're not a native English speaking person. And so like I get it. That's fine. And like you said, I think if they just hit like, hey, look, it changes the subject in
Yeah.
some way,
And
or
it's
it
like an
does something,
action.
it
It's an action
impacts.
word.
Yeah. I think that's the best place to start.
Yeah.
Like, because they could have made 40 more videos
Yeah.
about how verbs, impact and change a sentence. And you would have sat there and been like, oh, okay, like these don't make sense. Like I'll pay attention to these. Give it something fun and snappy and
Right.
interesting, and I would have paid attention to those as well. So
Well,
I think
yeah,
just the goal or the point of this video came across, but then it just got muddled for me.
exactly. And this
And
one
then-
for me, it felt like they were trying to do the action words, right? So they were just like verbs,
Yeah.
action words. Let's watch this
Yeah.
action movie, and then they started to try to cram all this other stuff into it. I'm like, well, hold on, I'm still watching like this crazy action movie that was like, it was a zoo, and now it's a superhero, and now he's a mountain climber, and now all this crazy stuff is going on. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it kind of devolves into like really trying to get across every use of a verb. And it was just, that was a little too much. As a little kid, I
And
don't think I
but-
would have got it. I would have just watched whatever the cartoon was.
Yeah, I mean, as an adult now, I mean, not having watched this when I was a kid, as an adult now, I'm just kind of like, ooh, there was so much stuff here.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I think maybe a younger child version, Sean, would have enjoyed it and would have just kind of been happy with the song and the music and understanding what a verb was. But I think some of these more complicated
Yeah.
components of the English language would have been totally lost on me, as they sometimes totally are even
Still,
now
yeah.
as an adult.
No, I definitely would have been glazed over, just like, just watching the
Right.
cartoon, because it's visually interesting. It's very imaginative. So Conjunction Junction was pretty much, we got this conductor, he was putting rail cars together to form sentences and ushering them along. That's it. You had these little hobo interludes that would kind of help to explain stuff, but there wasn't anything more than that. It was all very, grounded, relatively practical. This thing, since the kid is going to watch a movie, you see his imagination. So at some point, like the entire theater audience around him turns into wild animals, and he decides we're in the zoo now. And then
Right.
at another point, like the protagonist in the movie, he's this superhero that he's flying around, or he's now a baseball player, or he's like I said, a mountain climber, or just doing all these kinds of different things. So you see into this kid's imagination. So not only is there a lot going on that they're trying to teach you, there's a lot going on that they're trying to show you too. And it feels too much. And I can't imagine that if it feels too much in 2015, it had to feel like absolute overload in like 1978 or whenever this was.
Yeah.
But
again, I got a little bit of a feeling. I don't know if you got this feeling. Like there was a weird the music that was playing.
Yeah.
During the background, and they kind of had background singers. Again, sort of as we mentioned with the Conjunction Junction, we had background singers that with the what's your function, and so like for this, they sort of had people that were in the background, and just looking at it, there were like a lot of like oohs and ahs.
Yeah, this was more
and kind of like
yeah,
following up sort of like the last thing that somebody had said and just sort of emphasizing
callback,
it, like to more punctuate the point that they were making. I got a weird kind of like 70s, maybe like late 60s, like 70s style, like kind of feel with it. I don't know.
If I remember correctly, it had a little more funk to it.
Yeah, I got some funk, but I also got funk mixed with like Fifth Dimension.
Yeah,
they sang the song "Age." They sang
sort of the Motown kind of harmonies in there with like a little bit of a funk through line.
But Fifth Dimension was they did the song like Aquarius.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Age of Aquarius,
exactly.
And so there was like there was sort of like a feeling that I had with that. And then I guess the final thing I wanted to say about this, the reason that I said it was wholesome was at the very end they come back to the boy getting home, jumping into his mom's arms, and they conclude everything with saying to love.
Exactly.
And you're like,
the most powerful verb of all.
Yeah. And so, it's like that was cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. I think the message for me was a little bit muddled.
Honestly, and I honestly just completely forgot that last part because I was trying to keep track of like everything else that was going on.
All the shit that was going on.
I was like superhero, baseball player, everything's really cool, mountain climber. Wait, what the hell just happened? Oh well, it's fine. So I don't know. There was just a lot going on in this one. So I don't know. Maybe they spread this one out to break it down a little bit. But anything else for verb? Honestly, when you tackle something like verb, conjunction, junction, fine. You're talking about conjunctions for a sentence. Verb, that's huge. Maybe break it down a little bit next time, guys.
Oof.
Just a time travel message from the future.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's probably time to talk about, if not our favorite, and probably everybody else's favorite, or at least the one they remember the most. And the one that brought Sean to Washington, D.C.
Right. I would have said my favorite is that in all of the notes that Dave and I have been sending back and forth about everything, at the top it just says, I'm just a Bill, and in parentheses it just says, Obviously.
This is the one that, like, it's between this and Conjunction Junction, I think, it's the first theme song that comes to mind, or first song that comes to mind when I hear Schoolhouse Rock. I honestly think I hear this, and then I have to think, oh, what was that from again? Oh, yeah, Schoolhouse Rock. So I think this before I think of the actual show title,
Yeah.
So this one obviously talks about...
or the one song that Dave has been singing for the last half an hour before we started recording, which is the Sesame Street.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
11, 12. We had to hold debate whether or not that was Sesame Street or it was Schoolhouse.
Not Schoolhouse Rock.
Yes.
I was super wrong.
Myth busted.
Myth busted. But I sure know how to count to 12. Yeah, so I'm Just a Bill obviously walks you through the process, more or less, of a bill becoming a law. And we see this entire process, at least I thought, from the perspective of this little rolled up piece of paper named Bill, who's got his little badge, tacked to him that says Bill. And he's sitting on the steps of the Capitol Hill. And he's got the same voice that the conductor did, but it's very much more like depressed and sort of maudlin and just very down in the dumps. And this kid comes along and Bill walks him through the process. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Bill's going to walk us through the process of becoming a law. Watch it again, guys. You might remember the song. Watch this again because it might make you feel, it's either going to enrage you or it's going to make you feel okay. The state of our current political system here in the United States of America. How did you feel watching this one again, though? Because I had that hit of nostalgia, which made me feel good, and then I was just like, oh no, everything's been terrible for a very long time.
Yeah, my feeling walking away from it now was that I almost want to put two categories. I felt like this was a sing-songy narrative story that they were telling, and then I feel like Conjunction Junction was an actual song that they were sort of singing. And so I this is musical, but there is more narration in this in 3 minutes than I remembered.
Yeah.
And my feeling or the sense when I finished watching this was fuck it,
right?
does it matter? And I'll explain why I felt that it didn't matter. It's for a very specific reason, and it's directly related to the bill that they were trying to get passed.
Oh man, I think I might have completely whiffed on that. So you're gonna have to educate me as well.
Yeah. Well, here, I'll explain this to you. So, Dave mentioned that they explained the idea of a bill becoming law, but even before that, there's a point where they discuss the idea of it or not the idea of it, but they discuss an idea to a bill to a law, and so that's sort of the full spectrum that they have in this. And so, they said, sometimes there are people who get together and they have this idea, and so they call. They call the representative, and the representative puts it into a bill, and then it hopefully gets passed into a law.
Yeah.
And so as they are describing this, and as it's going together, they are showing what he is typing on his typewriter.
Oh, I missed that.
That's becoming a bill.
Okay.
And when I saw it, and then for everything from that point forward, everything that happened for me, I wanted to punch the screen as hard as fucking possible, because what they wrote down was school buses must stop at a railroad crossing.
Oh boy.
And that was it. And then to go through the idea of something that is so common sense, or should be so common sense, it was one of those things that it frustrated the fuck out of me.
Look, man, I'm gonna add a subcategory to your categorization earlier.
Categorization.
Categorization. I'm gonna add a subcategory. This is a song with a narration and a shitload of commentary. This is like, sometimes it's explicit commentary where they actually say, this social or political commentary, where they actually say, like, oh, I can't believe I've been sitting here, languishing for all this time while the committee's talking. Like, that doesn't tell you the process of how things are supposed to work. That tells you that something is broken and that this guy is pissed because he's been sitting here for this long because people aren't doing their jobs. So that kind of social commentary. And also what you just said about, like, something that should be common sense has to be written out and legislated, and then something that is such a straightforward measure or suggestion or idea, the fact that it languishes in debates and committees for so long is very frustrating. So there's a lot of social commentary going on in this one too.
Well, I'll say this, in addition to your new categorization to support and back this up, the thing that is frustrating is that the first two, as we said, had that like personal touch, very warm.
Right.
This had that warm sense to it, but it felt like there was a very specific personal agenda that was placed on top of this that was very directed. This almost didn't feel like it should have been for kids. It should have been for
legislators.
Dumb adults. It should have been for dumb adults,
for voters and legislators.
Exactly, and it was frustrating. And I mean, I know that this is a very distilled process in terms of what it takes to get there, but even just in the general sense, these are just broad brushstrokes. Yeah. It is depressing as fuck.
And that's the worst part, is this is supposed to be kind of a boiled down version of it, and he boils it down as far as just like, the steps from creation of an idea, write it down, it's a bill, get it sponsored by your local representative, and then pass it on through these committees. And then if they all say that it's okay, even if everybody says that it's great and they support it, it still has to go through the president. And he's even like, fuck, well, he doesn't say that, but he's like, fuck it. Even then, he's like, I could just be sitting here as a bill because he can reject me, and it's called a veto. And he stamps the wall, which I found hilarious. He just stamps the wall that says veto. So he's very depressed.
And that is the first thing that you notice, is that when they zoom up. So the boy has the best opening line ever.
Go ahead. And
they are showing Capitol Hill, like for some reason on top of an actual hill. If you've ever been to Washington D.C., it's not on an actual hill. Right. It's down
in the swamp.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We are
We
an
are
area
in a
that is
swamp.
built on top of a swamp.
Just filled in
And
that
so-
swamp.
So they're showing this almost sort of up on like this pinnacle, this high point,
Yeah.
and then there's this long winding path that's coming down, and this boy, he has the best opening line ever. Do you remember what it
No,
was?
I don't remember it.
He just goes, "Woof."
Woof. Was it because he was winded
get-
from climbing all those
Yeah.
stairs?
Yep.
Oh,
He just goes,
boy.
"Woof." He goes, "You sure got to climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol
And
building
there
here
you go.
in Washington."
There you go, man. There's your social commentary right out of the gates. This kid saying, essentially you have to jump through all these hoops to get to this point on Capitol Hill,
And then he follows it up then immediately by saying, "But I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is." So he's already projecting
Yeah.
onto this slovenly,
Yeah.
poor postured
He's down,
piece of paper.
down in the mouth. He's just like staring at the ground, kind of kicking his heels, and he's not going anywhere.
He's looking. He has the same posture that I have.
now.
Like after going out. Yeah, right now. He has the same posture that I have around 4:30 in the morning after I've gone out and enjoyed myself with some adult beverages,
Oh, boy.
and then I wake up and I'm like, "Oh no, I've made terrible mistakes." Like that's the exact same posture that he had.
Or you're just hungover and you're sitting on the edge of the bed trying to get your shit together. It's the same one either way.
No, it's that moment where you're just like, I just want to lay on something cool,
Yep.
anything cool for some reason. Please let there be cool tile.
This would have been, you honestly, it was this kind of tone that he literally could have laid down on the Capitol steps, had a full beard, and had a blanket made out of a dead and discarded bill.
Yeah,
Like he could have been covered in the dead body of one of his fellow bills, and it would have fit perfectly with the tone of this episode. It was so dark and depressing. There's just dead bills
God.
littered all over this place, and he's just trying to hang in there to get some sort of progress done. And then Sunshine the Kid comes up, and he's like, "Woof, what's a guy got to do to get a bill made in this country?"
who's that sad sack of shit laying on the steps? And you're like, oh my god, what a fucking dick.
And then Bill's just
It's-
like, "All right, I guess we'll go through this again. I'm just Bill. I'm only a Bill sitting
Yeah.
on Capitol Hill." And the kid's like, "Yeah, I know. I can see all that."
You have to wonder at some point. I'll ask this to you, Dave.
Yeah.
Do you think he wanted to be passed into a law?
Look, he will, spoiler alert, he does get made into a law at the end of this. So it is kind of
Fair.
nice. This big fat bureaucrat comes out and says, "Congratulations, you're a law." And he gets like a little gold badge, and he's hoisted up onto people's shoulders, and he's pretty happy about it. I think he's very frustrated with the process to get to this point, because God knows
Who
how long he's been
isn't?
sitting there. And that's a crazy thing. This came out in 76. This came out for a bicentennial episode.
Right.
So, you think we're in bad shape now. We can't get anything done. It's nothing new. Bill's been sitting
Yeah.
there for 40 years. And this is just about school buses.
School buses have been just driving over train tracks
For
forever.
40 years,
So
school buses.
many people,
Oh
so
my
many
God.
people have been injured.
But I love the process of it. So, yes, it is still educational. They say, like we said before, the process of a bill being created and then eventually becoming a law and then getting, being passed by the president. But there are these moments throughout this interstitial where he's just like, "Oh, I guess I'll sit here in this committee again." And it's just stuff that does not really explain to kids what's happening. It just shows his frustration the entire time. And it's very, very apparent. And somehow I forgot that in the, 20, 25 years, the last time I watched this cartoon. And it is very apparent now. So I would definitely suggest that you guys go back and watch this again with sort of a fresh set of eyes. And you'll have that moment of just like, "Oh, I'm just a Bill." And then your world will collapse around you.
my favorite part of watching it now with a fresh set of eyes was just how melodramatic
Yeah.
the bill is.
Way over the top.
So I want to read these because I wrote these down.
Okay.
This is great. This is the bill. He just goes, "Yeah, I'm lucky." Or he goes, "I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably. Otherwise, I may die." And the boy just goes, "Die?" He should have gone, "Woof?
Whoa.
Die?" And then Bill goes, "Yeah, die in committee, but oh, it looks like I'm gonna live. Now I go to the House of Representatives." And you're just like, whoa, dude, you just threw around like an expiration date like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And this kid is confused, and you're not doing anything to massage
No,
his
you are
fears.
not sheltering him
You're just-
or anything
What
whatsoever.
a dick.
So
What
wait,
an
at
asshole.
what point does the camera pan to all the other bills that are like waiting in line? Do you remember what part that was?
I think when they're waiting in line to get at the White House,
Was
there's
it
the
was it
point
the
where they
White
go
House?
to the
Okay.
yeah. I think it's the point right before they discuss the veto.
So sort of after they've
Uh,
passed committee, they're sort of waiting to see if they've passed committee and have the support of the House and the Senate.
Right. And so after House of Representatives and the Senate have gone through all of their voting process,
Right.
then it's off to the White House, and then it's something where they're waiting in line. And so I know you had a favorite moment from this. Do you want to?
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that. I also just want to mention really quick that Bill he's not partisan. So he doesn't say, he's like, oh, these fucking Republicans or oh, this Democratic asshole president.
Right.
He's
right.
just like, all of you are terrible. He's like, at any step of the way, you guys are just impeding my progress of something that should be common sense, and you're all terrible. And I'm just waiting to die. He's like, my entire existence is to just wait here to die in the hopes that maybe one of you will get your head out of your ass and make me into a law. That's essentially what his argument boils down to.
Die?
Die? Woof.
So they're waiting in this line.
So all these bills of different shapes and sizes, different ages, God knows how long they've been there. They're all waiting in line, and they're mostly, they're not remarkable until you get to one guy who's got a shotgun tucked under his shoulder, tucked under his arm, pointing behind him, and the barrel of the shotgun is sticking into the guts of the bill behind him, who has like these big wide eyes, like he's about to get blown in half by this shotgun. And then Sean and I were talking offline. We were like, I wonder if that's like a gun control legislation because clearly we have yet to make any headway on that. So that was just one of my favorite moments to watch it kind of out of context. We were trying to figure out where in history this was. It was after like a political assassination attempt, or if it was just frustration with rise in violence, or rise in gun violence specifically. I don't know. I can't really pin that down. But it was, in today's climate, that one definitely stuck out. It's a bill with a gun being held to the guts of another bill. So I wonder which one got passed. So pretty interesting. If they were going to take the Verb show's approach to this, they might as well talked about lobbies and pork barrel spending and all kinds of other economic stuff, because they could have just
we're looking for DC buzzwords, right?
I love just saying pork barrel because it makes me think of bacon, and pigs are delicious.
Pigs are delicious.
They are delicious.
I agree.
Do you have anything else from I'm Just a Bill, now that we've dashed the hopes and dreams and memories of?
No, I think we should get into recommendations.
You want to get to recommendations?
Yeah, let's get these.
Okay, so do you recommend checking out any of the... Okay, let me rephrase. Do you recommend checking out the ones we talked about today? And additionally, conjunction, do you recommend checking out the rest of the series?
Yes. Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. You need to use a conjunction.
Conjunction, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, conductor.
What was your feeling about that?
I would say same, definitely. I mean, this is something that's just, it's kind of ingrained in our history now, going back to 73. It definitely is. And I don't really know what the new ones look like. I haven't seen those videos. But
I'm just a text.
Oh, really?
I could become soon a sext.
Oh, boy. We will. Ooh, watch out, kids. We will talk about that in a second. I do have a couple other episodes that we may visit in the future. But for now, if you're trying to think of some other episodes from Schoolhouse Rock off the top of your head, I will suggest Electricity. Check that one out. Also check out A Victim of Gravity, The Body Machine, and Them Not So Dry Bones. Those are some fun ones that we watched. And you can tell they have a science bent. So that was kind of fun for me. I enjoyed going back to watch those. You don't remember that Electricity song?
Don't remember the Electricity song.
Really?
I'm excited to go back and watch all of these.
That's a fun one.
These are good.
There's a point where they like lose me too, because they start talking about like Gaussian radiation or something. I'm just like, that might be a bit strong for kids to remember. But yeah, I would say check that one out. Now, that being said, 2009 was the last time I believe we saw any new episodes created for direct-to-video. If they made this today, would you be behind it, and what would your first video be? I think you already said it, but...
I'm sorry?
You can, well, you said sexting. You can take this seriously, or you can just make a joke out of it. I'm fine either way.
No, I would not mind a reboot of this.
Yeah.
I think I'm a longtime fan, and I've been listening to a lot of NPR's Radio Lab.
Okay.
And so they talk about a lot of science topics every once in a while. And I think some of those pieces I would love to have sort of abstracted and put into the context of Schoolhouse Rock.
So just sort of
they are
told through this filter of Schoolhouse Rock,
right.
like this animation for kids style.
And they are just some of them are very complicated topics.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that might be helpful and be educational is, in terms of understanding some of the things that have been in news, like understanding why people get vaccinated,
Right.
Understanding, some of these social things that we have that come up that people will debate, and kind of breaking it down into a very simple, factual, as they do in this show,
right.
breaking it down into something that is very fact-based that we have, and saying, here's what it is. You can make up your own mind,
right.
And I think that education, I think sometimes is very challenging because, far too often people will add, as we said, that, it felt like the bill one had a specific agenda that was not necessarily that.
It wasn't conducive to the lesson.
The
really.
viewer.
It didn't add. I mean, it showed frustration, but that for a kid who's trying to learn the legislative process for like a civics class or whatever, that doesn't really help him or her.
So it's in those senses, I feel like maybe taking away some of the bias that was in the it's just I'm just a bill.
Yeah.
Taking away some of that bias and just saying, hey, here's the straight fact. However you want to make a decision afterwards, because I still think that that's probably one of the things that I don't know. The thing,
just use facts.
I do know. I do know. Okay. The point that I'm trying to say with this is, give you the material, and then you can use your own critical thinking skills,
exactly,
and you can determine exactly what you want to do.
Exactly.
I think that's the more important thing.
So rather than say something like, "Man, I've been languishing here forever. I hope they get their acts together and I can finally," say maybe at this point, like the average bill takes this long to become a law, or this long to reach the Senate, or this long to reach the desk of the president, and then say, there are a lot of factors that are involved and people have different interests in mind. So what may seem like a straightforward thing may not actually be straightforward.
And then somebody be like, what about interests? And you'd be like, well, let me tell you all about lobbies.
Yeah, then that's for our next episode.
Shit.
Yeah. We should start Saturday Morning Cartoons educational wing. We should actually start a Saturday Morning Cartoons Academy where we just make animated shorts about sex.
Educational animated shorts about sex.
Sexting.
I mean, if anybody wants education on how to properly sext somebody,
definitely not us.
Have a conversation with them ahead of time.
Yeah.
And if they're just like, yeah, I'm in for it, great, then you can proceed. But really, make sure that it's consensual, because it's something that's very personal.
And of age.
Dummy. God. Yeah,
Sean, I'm going to need you to stretch that like 6-second PSA into like a
over
3.5
3
minute
minutes.
musical episode.
I'm just a sext.
Oh, God.
Can't wait for this.
But no, man, I would love it if it came into the modern era. So not new cartoons that were just copying the old stuff that was direct to video, but I'm talking like stuff that just has a YouTube channel. Maybe it does. If this does and you people know about it out there, then I apologize. Please let us know, because I'd like to see. But something that has a YouTube channel where it's freely accessible to kids and everybody else. Yeah. It should be something that you shouldn't have to pay to see on a video, whether at home, whether on your own, or as teachers, as educators.
Right.
You shouldn't have to pay to be able to do this. I mean, if there was, public access funding or something like that. Sean, do you have a follow-up?
No. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, I think for a lot of things, as far as we've come technology-wise, understanding how the internet works, understanding how some of these basic things, work in terms of, technology and some of the advancements that we've had in tech and science, how, like, what happens when you send an email?
Yeah.
Because I'm always
Basics.
surprised. I'm always surprised, like, sometimes when I talk to somebody and they're just like, well, I don't really know how email works. It's just a magic button that I press. And I'm like, I'm sorry, are you, maybe it's because this is what I went to school for, but are you kidding me? Like, you don't get how?
If you ask anyone, anything that we use on a daily basis, cars, cell phones, email, computers, a microwave even, ask anybody out there that doesn't have a background in any of this stuff, or somebody who even does have a scientific background. They might know the basics of things, but they're not going to know the minutia, because it doesn't matter, because our culture is just, you push a button, it does the thing that you want it to do, and it's done. You move on with your day. You don't have to sit there and worry about how it works. I'm not defending that. I think that's a terrible way to live, that you should know how these things work that you're using on a daily basis.
Right.
But yeah, something like Schoolhouse Rock would be amazing for things like that. Like, I think the thing you mentioned with vaccines is perfect, spot on. Should be done. Even, you know, just the modern take on the cold and flu season, or a modern take on internet ethics, because all these kids are on the internet these days, but they don't know how to interact and talk with people and be respectful.
Right.
And things are changing. Like our social interactions are changing because of the internet and the way that we're able to access people. People make mistakes and they do stupid stuff. So if you can head that off by doing something like through Schoolhouse Rock, I think that'd be great. Hopefully they are doing it. If not, give us your monies and we will do it for you.
Yeah. Even just like an updated one on manners.
Any of these can use an update. They can use a freshening. I love the 70s look to it. I love the old classic songs. Every single one could use a freshening, because everybody could use a refresher on pretty much every single one of these topics. And if you make it modern, and if you make it look like it was actually produced this year rather than 40 years ago, kids today might actually look and pay attention to it a little bit more than maybe they would if it's something that just looked like an old cartoon. So yeah, I'm off my soapbox now.
Yeah, I'm getting it down, putting that soapbox away.
Let's kickstart at Saturday Morning Cartoons Academy for Kids.com and Ethics Business Center.
Good.
Well, that's pretty much it for the show, I think. What do you have coming up in the next couple of weeks there, buddy?
Well, I will have just concluded the District Improv Festival at the time that this comes out.
Excellent.
I have a smattering of shows that are happening from the end of September until the end of the year, and I'm just getting dates right now. So you can check out witdc.org for a lot of these, and then I will also post a majority of them on SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. But in the meantime, if you want to interact with me on Twitter, you can follow me and say hi at Sean Paul Ellis, and at Sean Paul Ellis on Instagram too.
Wonderful.
What are you up to, David?
What am I up to? I actually just got back from Dragon Con, so by the time you guys are hearing this, Dragon Con.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, so I actually got a chance to talk to some of the folks from CW shows Arrow and The Flash. I also got a chance to talk to incredible voice actors and all-around awesome people, Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt. I will have links to that interview up on our website. And, you know, stay tuned in the future. Perhaps one or maybe both of them might be joining us on the show. We don't have anything locked down at the moment, but we are pulling some strings behind the scenes. Connection.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
That'd be wonderful.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So if you guys out there are interested in having them on the show, please let us know and reach out to them too. Tell them you heard about them on Saturday Morning Cartoons. And for more on Saturday Morning Cartoons, you can check out our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also follow us on Twitter at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork on Tumblr, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. We've got Facebook. We've got YouTube. We are available each and every week through iTunes and Stitcher. And you can also email us, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. If you're not out of school yet, kids, you got another 2 weeks. So prepare to learn more. The next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons, we will be continuing our Back to School September. Buddy, do you remember what we're covering the next time? Put you on the spot.
Next week, we are going to be talking about Chalk Zone.
I have no idea what this is.
Yeah.
I think I suggested it, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you did.
It sounds like a homicide.
This one's interesting. It's sort of like Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Okay.
/ Portal.
Ooh.
Kind of, a little bit.
Oh, so it's basically like a little kid that
he can draw portals in with a magic piece of chalk.
Interesting. So he's not drawing chalk outlines around dead bodies for the police.
Is that what? Wait, hold on. When you recommended it, is that what you wanted?
Well, you just
CSI
said Chalk Zone.
Cartoon.
The first thing I pictured was like a dead outline of a dead guy for a kid's show.
Yeah. So yeah,
Schoolhouse Rocks
talk
on death. Yeah.
On death.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk up a little bit of Chalk Zone.
Talk up some chalk up. Yep.
Oh boy, please say
it's
that
time to shut
next
it down.
week when we bring it.
Oh, boy. Well, thank you for joining us for Schoolhouse Rock. Be sure to let us know if you like this show and share your favorite Schoolhouse Rock memories with us through any of the various social media outlets that I talked about. And I think that'll do it for us tonight. So thanks again for listening, and we will see you next time.